Hi, this is Tep. I play a lot of Knockout City, and I just thought I'd read through the Season 4 League Play update and give my thoughts on some of the highlights. First off, Team KO routine as Season 4 League Play playlist. That's the best. Thank you. We know this may be disappointing to the few players we've seen defending team elimination in discussions online, but it's clear that the overwhelming majority of competitive players are asking for Team KO to return. Interesting, you put competitive. I wonder what casuals thought about this, and it seemed like the overwhelming majority wanted it in the game anyways from the start, so I'm glad you reversed your decision. Wish you reversed it earlier, but obviously it is very good news to me to hear that Team KO is coming back. Team KO is a core game mode that Knockout City was built around, and after listening to intently to community discussion and constantly debating ourselves at Velen, we've decided to bring it back as a league play mode for Season 4. I would love to know who is trying to defend Team Elim. It is really interesting that, like, any gameplay that I watch that people would think that like Team Elim is actually like a fun while also competitive mode with all like the glaringly obvious issues that were apparent like as soon as the game mode came into existence. Um, Next, I'd like to spend some time to better explain why we brought Team Elimination in the first place, why we've decided to change back Team KO next season, how we improve our process of making changes to the core experience in the future, and also why we've decided to keep League Play to just one playlist for now. Afterwards, I'll discuss some other upcoming improvements to how the leaderboard placements work, inspired directly from feedback from our most competitive Diamond players. That is cool. I don't know where you get your feedback from competitive Diamond players, if you're referring just to the Discord, or if you've actually like reached out to them personally and directly, or if you're just listening in on what people's opinions are on streams. But it would be interesting to know where this feedback is actually coming from. It's going to be a long one. Yep. Season 3 League Play. The roots of why Team Elimination was destined for League Play all the way back to before beta even launched. At the time, all we knew was that we had something truly special on our hands, a new type of competitive multiplayer game. Yes, you invented a new genre called Dodgeball, and I expect there to be rip-offs in the future, and I'm excited to see what they look like. But anyways, that was impossible to describe because it had never been done before, but we had no idea how the world responded to the game and what type of community would form around it. I thought this was kind of funny what type of community would form around it. Like, what are you really meaning here? Are you talking about like a competitive community or a casual community? I'm not sure here, but I wonder how you'd describe that the community that you have now, whether you what you see it as. Anyways, even after the amazing response to our beta, it was so limited in scope that we didn't know how players would react to the wide variety of features. Yes, the core of the game was built around our signature mode, Team KO, but we simply had no idea what else would rise to the top. League play, blah, 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 blah. So yes, obviously, like you're not sure like what's going to actually be the most popular, but I do think that you really should like hone in on one mode and try and make it, the signature mode and do everything you can to support it. I'll talk more about that later. We just didn't know what we had our hands on yet, which is why you saw so many new modes and variants of playlists throughout Season 1, and for those who have been here since the beginning, this is why we had Team KO switched out for Team KO for a bit. We've always envisioned this as a community-driven game, but before we had the community and before we had the ability to make changes for a game as frequently as we can now, we had to take some giant guesses and shoot super wide with the amount of variety we had to offer and what would stick. Okay. Getting back to League Play. Our plan way back before beta was actually for League Play to be either Team Elition or Coin Hoarders. That is hilarious. I'd love to see competitive Coin Hoarders supported in a tournament. As our May 21st launch date approached, we were running out of time to finish Team Elimination mode. It also became clear that the Coin Hoarders was fun but not up to the competitive level of Team KO. Interesting. Actually, like genuinely would be interesting to see like what it looks like having like people actually like trying their ass off in competitive Coin Hoarders. I don't think that you have to completely write it off, and even when it comes to like Team KO and Team Elimination, there still isn't like the skill ceiling hasn't really been close to being reached due to like the small community size and sort of lack of motivation in the competitive scene. So I don't think like it should be off the table when it comes to like thinking about what competitive modes you're doing, that Coin Hoarders might actually be a thing. Anyways, so we launched Season 1 with Team KO and Face Off with the plan to bring Team Elimination in when it was ready. What do you mean when it was ready? It seemed like it was implemented really rushed. There were like glaring issues that anyone could have seen before even playing the mode that were allowed in the game, and it's just it was a wonder to all of us why jumping off the map is like an integral part of like strategically playing Team Elimination. So I don't really get it just doesn't seem like team elimination was ever ready to be brought into the game. But anyways, why did we bring in team elimination? Well, for one thing, Knockout City is nothing if not an intense game. We believe team elimination could help slow down the pace a bit and give players more time to strategize. That is true. It does slow down the pace a bit and gives you sort of more time to strategize, I guess. Second, team elimination helped eliminate a possible strategy within Team KO where one team could get enough of a lead that they could try to keep their distance and wait out the clock. Lastly, when we gave Team Elimination its 4v4 and 2v2 versions to try and street play in Season 2, it went over extremely well with players, including a Team Elimination tournament we ran partway through the season. I don't really know what people thought when it went over extremely well with players. Like if people thought it was fun to play casually, if it was fun to like just play with their friends, if it was fun to play competitively. I don't know. I think there was like mixed feedback from the Team Elimination tournament, but I'm heavily biased on that because of the people I talked to. But anyways, the real thing I really wanted to kind of stop and talk about was Team Elimination helped eliminate a possible strategy within Team KO, and one team could get an early enough lead that they could just try to keep their distance and wait out the clock. This is probably the thing I really wanted to dig into the most. Why recording this is like this has been apparent since like the very first time you ever play the game, is that there really isn't an incentive to like run in and actually try and beat people, especially if your score is up. And then like the game kind of naturally stalemates and turns into sort of a clock running out if you're really trying to play competitively. And to me, it's just really disappointing to see that like no changes have been made to Team KO to actually quote eliminate a possible strategy that you guys like directly reference here. It's been like 5-6 months since the game's released, and there hasn't been really any updates to like ways to beat the stalemate of Team KO. So that's probably really important that I want to hear some feedback on is whether there are thoughts and like what are some like strategies that you guys have to actually try and fix Team KO. Um, One additional side benefit of the change of team elimination, though it didn't really factor in as a reason for the change, actually had to do with the removal of face-off from league play. While face-off was one of my personal favorite modes, the analytics were showing us that we would improve league play experience by focusing on one playlist for now, which is why we don't offer both Team KO and Team Elim at the same time. In a lot of ways, Team Elim combines the best aspects of face-off with the team-based play of Team KO, so some of what made both those modes special could live on. Um, Sort of going against the grain here. Actually, maybe I'm not, but I don't even understand why Face Off was ever even a game in Knockout City, since like passing is just such an integral part of actually kind of beating people. There's a lot of strategy around it, and kind of playing off your team is based on one of the things. It actually seems like you really missed the mark when you actually added Face Off to the game, because you really should have thought about like what an actual competitive player would do in a one versus one situation, and what they're going to do is wait and wait and wait and wait until they can't do it anymore. And it just seems like with the way the game was designed, you being like the designer of the game would understand that like this would also result in a huge stalemate if rather than the fun intense experience of the 3v3. So I don't really like the idea that the direction for Team Elim comes from Face Off being popular. It just seems like a really weird way to play the game for me, being a more competitive, sweaty player. Um, that's the next part. Oh, this is why we have some blinders on our goal to bring Team Elim into league play. This is probably one of my favorite sentences of the reply, because you definitely did have some blinders on when you brought Team Elim into league play. In the end, this experience has taught us more about our game, our community, and our decision-making process. So moving forward, as we shift focus back to Team KO, we can use this opportunity to make the gameplay experience and the conversation with the community even better. That is cool. Um, I would really like to see some gameplay experiences actually being Season 4 and beyond. I don't think any of the critiques of Team Emulation are unfair, and as I've been playing it myself each night, I've found I agree with many of the same conclusions reached by the community. It is extremely difficult for us to foolproof test some of the creative decisions we make in our tiny studio, so we often just have to use the best information that we have and take a risk when releasing it into the world. This is very extremely true, and this is kind of an awkward critique to make, but you can tell the devs are noobs at their game. This is like obviously they're busy like developing an entire video game. They're not going to be super good at Knockout City, but I really hope you guys take into consideration like when we watch sort of like dev streams and see you guys play and things like that and hear about like your experience on the Discord, like a competitive player kind of like looks at you guys like you're like noobs at your own game. So just please be wary when making decisions about like balance and things like that. And when you're in your tiny studio and like the people who pick up the game like once a week and just kind of sit back and don't really like care to try like min max their play. Um, just really make sure that you're taking that into account and look more at like people who've really tried to like master your game. Anyways, that was true of Knockout City as a whole, but also individual features and game modes that we've released since then, like Superpowers, Basketball, the Brawl Pass bundles, and more. I want to thank all of you for trying out each new feature we add and for taking the time to go online and celebrate the high and critique the lows. Yes, especially me. I critique a lot of the lows, but I never celebrate the highs. I'm sorry. It is extremely helpful to us, and while the game development takes more time than we all wish it did, we are always listening and rearranging our priorities to try and get to the issues you feel most passionately about. Um, I'm pretty sure this is a completely unrealistic ask, but just like full transparency of your priorities constantly would really help us help you. But I understand why you obviously can't do that. But for example, for me, like one of the biggest priorities I see is like trying to fix Team KO or add like customizable private matches, and I'm so curious to like where you guys are in that progress because I just don't see the game kind of lifting from where it is right now without like some of these major features adjusted and added. But yeah, again, a really tall ask, whatever. This is so important to us at Vellum that our marketing community team members are actually embedded within the development team, bringing your voice to the daily conversation and decisions we make. Josh, the marketing manager, is in our morning lead meeting every day. Also, we have weekly meetings with myself, the design team, marketing team, blah, 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 blah. Present top issues scrapped from Discord, Reddit, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Complete with actual screenshots of your most critical posts and comments. That's really cool. I mean, I appreciate the things you guys do. It seems like you guys do really like invest a ton into community feedback. I don't play a lot of other games, so I don't know how unusual it is, but I would assume that you guys get an A plus for like the way you kind of respond and kind of look at what is happening in the game. Um, Obviously, one of the main topics every week for the past 4 weeks has been league play. We are almost always in agreement with the general community sentiments. In the case of league play, the best to do is shift back to Team KO. Again, reiterating on the point that I wish you did this earlier, and I wish you never changed it. It seemed like the community was absolutely betrayed by this choice that no one asked for, and to bring more insult to injury, when this choice was announced, I think the post that announced it was titled "Upcoming Much Anticipated Changes to League Play." So that one really burned, and kind of, you got the negative feedback that was warranted, to put it kind of brutally with that. Team KO will bring back the high speed intensity that rewards skill, reflexes, and teamwork every moment of the much shorter matches. I am also personally hopeful that players digging really deep into Simulation this season will help illuminate new strategies and approaches that can be carried over and modified to Team KO next season. I, for one, am still having a blast in Team Illumination. I have found I learned more techniques spectating my remaining teammates whenever I was first to go, and nothing beats the thrill of being the last brawler, standing on your team, knowing they're watching you every move. You manage a spectacular set of plays to be outrunning opponents. But yes, as we've all discovered, the skill ceiling for teamwork in Knockout City is so high that the number of times you can actually win a 1v2 or 1v3 isn't high enough to sustain the mode. Um, Reading this was pretty grueling. I think we really could have seen it coming before the mode was ever made. And you say the skill ceiling for teamwork in Knockout City is so high. I don't even know if it's like even that complicated. I think like just simply the way your game is designed like doesn't really allow you to like 1v2 people. You can only do one action at a time. You can't hit one person with two balls. So, I mean, it was pretty blatantly obvious that like when it comes to like the absolute top of the top competitive players, like there's no way you're ever going to come out on top of a 1 versus 2 or 1 versus 3 if the other people are truly trying, if there's money on the line or they really want to play. Like I'd even say 9 out of 10, like 99 of 100 times the situations where you're down a player is going to be hard. Um, in Team KO, this feels much more possible because sometimes all you have to do is survive long enough for your Respawn teammates to regroup. Yes, exactly. This is my personal, one of the favorite things I like doing is surviving long enough for my Respawn teammates to regroup. We all have a massive list of improvements we'd like to make to Team Elimination, many of which are taken directly from community suggestions, but instead of rushing to make a bunch of untested changes, we'd rather make them in a future season and bring it back as a temporary featured mode in Street Play to see what you think. Um, I still personally don't care for Team Elimination. I think even if you did like make really good balancing massive changes, I just simply don't like the idea of dying and having to wait. But the one thing I really wanted to critique on this sentence here is that Why only team elimination? Please tell me you have like improvements planned for Team KO. This has been needed since the very start. I'm going to bring up an anecdote. I think one of the first times I started watching a competitive game, I was watching like two teams. I think it was like Bugs and it was someone on Drip Drop's team, and like they just each stood on the opposite side of the map and let the timer run out. And this is like months ago. This is really early into the game. These are some of the first tournaments that happen, and it's like obviously an apparent issue that like the game doesn't actually really like push you into the other players, and you can easily kind of agree to like a stalemate or like a no contest. And it's, to me, I find like probably one of the biggest failures in Knockout City being like their inability to address this issue since it's existed since day one. And not only referencing like the anecdote that I brought up, you could kind of just tell from playing the game in a competitive lens at the start, like, what if both teams like don't want to actually engage each other? Like, what would they do? Like, they could genuinely just stand there and nothing would stop them from doing that. So it seems like a very obvious problem that hasn't been addressed yet. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow you will upload a new change to this problem, but it really just seems like this should be like the top of the priority list. Um, so Team KO returned to League Play for Season 4. What about the future? We have several thoughts on how we can work together to make the community better. First, we have invested a lot of time behind the scenes improving our ability to make changes to the game faster and without the need for full title upgrades. This is highly dependent on what needs to change, but our ability to respond to player feedback is much more timely now. Second, even though our communication of the League Play changes to Season 3 were announced way ahead of time, the information wasn't as clear and plainly stated as it should have been. Transparency is super important to this. This can be easily improved. And third, major changes to the core experience can be experimented with outside of actually changing the core experience out from under you, and we can work together to evaluate the possible changes. Um, yes, obviously, please do not change the core experience out from under you. You've already learned this lesson when you took 3v3 Team KO out of Street Play, and you heard that. You pretty much did the equivalent thing to League Play, and I think the outcry might have seemed smaller about it, but that's because the player base had decreased a lot since you guys took 3v3 out from Street Play. But again, like this really shouldn't have ever happened. This was really bad to, take the core experience out from under us. Okay, we should embrace change because there's always room for improvement, and we want this game to be active, alive. And with these improvements to our process, we can work to ensure that there are never any major negative surprises, and that you're always looking forward to what's coming next. Please, never again. This has already happened twice now. Let's just not gut the player base another time with, some major negative surprise. Hopefully, we get a major positive surprise in the future. Anyways, leaderboard placement improvements. And speaking of changes, here's what else we're going to make in the Season 4 League Play even better based on the feedback we've been getting from the most dedicated Diamond players. Some major improvements to League Play in Season 3 were changes to our skill rating system for Diamond players and the rewards for top placements on the leaderboard, but there were still some League Play issues that these didn't solve, which came due to a combination of a poor skill decay system and how we handled skill rating ties, and the starting skill rating when reaching Diamond. I agree. I think their League Play system is bad right now. The skill decay issue was actually just resolved in last week's update. In case you missed it, the skill decay system now triggers regardless of whether a player logged in or not, and also triggers every week of inactivity instead of every 2 weeks. Skill ratings tied are currently decided by which player completed the last match. For example, if 10 players are at 5,000, the last player to compete a match shoots up to first place, even if the 9 have more wins under the belt. The combination of these two systems result in some players playing once every 2 weeks or swooping in right at the last moments of the season to get one last match to shoot up to the top of the charts, overtaking all the other Diamond players regardless of how good their win-loss ratio was. I will never. I really wish we could get some more detail on why the skill rating actually has to be capped. Why does it have to be capped? Why can't we just leave it uncapped so that way people actually get rewarded for grinding the game and staying on their main accounts? I just watched someone today reach skill rating 5,000 and hop right off their account. That's really bad. With the improved skill decay system and upcoming change to